Okay, so here goes the attempt to walk through genetic problems and Punnett squares by using the stylus and the Word document at the same time. So I'll apologize up front about possible chicken scratching on the stylus. It's not the most precise thing to work with, but hopefully this gives you guys an idea of how to set these up. Okay, so let's start with problem number 1. We're assuming that we have this white fruited plant in which white is dominant over yellow, and we're going to cross a white fruited plant with a yellow fruited plant. So as you read the problems, the first thing you want to establish is what is the trait? And in this scenario, the trait we're talking about is going to be color. Okay, the variations in this example, white, which is dominant, big W, and yellow, which is recessive, meaning little w. Now the thing is, every variation has to have 2 alleles. So white could be big W, or it could be big W, little w. Either one is going to appear white. Yellow, though, on the other hand, is only going to be 2 little w's. So when we look at the problem, they're telling us we have a heterozygous white fruited plant. And when you see that word hetero, that means this is your genotype, big W, little w, that you're going to use to represent that parent. They're mated with a yellow fruited plant. So yellow being little w. Okay, so to figure out the ratios, what do we think we should get? We want to set up the 4-box Punnett square. Make it big, sorry, again, stylus is not the easiest thing to work with here. But what we want to look at is what is the possible outcomes of crossing these 2 individuals. Okay, so let's take this parent. This parent has a big W allele and a little w allele. And we have to separate them out because that's what happens during meiosis. We talked about theory of segregation, theory of independent assortment. Those alleles rip apart, and we don't know which of the W's will go to the child. It's a guess. It's a prediction. But we can make solid predictions based on the genetics of the parents. So one parent up here, the other parent in this scenario, which is yellow, will come down here. That means 2 little w's. But you rip them apart. You have to separate them. Okay? So if each of these boxes represent the kids, possible offspring inside those boxes there. We're looking at what could this child have for genetics, or this one, or that one, or that one. So the way we figure this out, if we were to call this dad, and this parent over here was mom, take one piece of dad's DNA, big W allele, combine it with mom's little w, that child just inherited a big W, little w. If this piece of dad's DNA, little w, combines with mom's little w, the child inherits 2 little w's. If this allele from dad happens to combine with this little w here, you have that child. And if that one and that one combine, now I have a child with little w. So when you are asked to write these out, I'm going to ask you to tell me the genotypic ratio and what is the phenotypic. Okay, so basic definitions. Geno is the genetic ratio. Genetically, we would expect 2 individuals to be heterozygous. We would expect 2 individuals to be homozygous recessive. So you can do it 2 to 2. I am completely fine if you want to do 50% to 50%. Does not matter. To me, it's the same thing. Okay? Either of those. This one, or you can say 50 to 50. Okay? Now, phenotypically, this is what color will they appear? what can I see? Well, these individuals, I'm going to see white. So I expect 2 white individuals, and I expect 2 yellow individuals. I expect a 2 to 2 for the phenotypic ratio, or I could say 50% to 50%. Whichever way works. Doesn't matter to me, okay? So you decide which way you're more comfortable with ratios as percentages or whole numbers. I am fine with it. Keep in mind, you have 4 possible outcomes here. So when you do the ratios, add them up. You got to add them up. They better equal 4. Percentage better equal 100%. Okay? So does not make a difference to me. All right, but make sure you can tell me genotypic and phenotypic ratio, and you have to be able to back it up with a Punnett square. Don't just say, I think. Back it up with the Punnett square. Okay? So this is what's called a monohybrid type of cross. Monohybrid. 1 trait, and we see 2 variations for this particular trait. Okay? So that's our first one to take a look at here. Alright, let me wipe the slate clean, and let's try another one. Okay, so let's take a look at problem number 2. Okay, problem number 2 is drawing a family tree. Okay, let's go back to this number 2. Let me make this a little better. Do a better number 2 here. Alright, so we're looking at a family tree. And when we work with family trees, I want you guys to be able to draw these out. And what does a family tree look like? Make sure you can set it up. This is asking about 3 generations. So you have 4 grandparents, 2 parents, and 1 grandchild. Happens to be a grandson. Now, in family trees, you will use, you're going to use circles to represent females, and you're going to use squares to represent males. Okay? So that's supposed to be a square. There's a connection, a genetic connection. Not genetic similarity, but genetic reproductive connection. Alright? So we got one side of the family tree, we have the other side of the family tree. So you have 4 grandparents, 2 parents, and then they have a grandson. Alright, so, okay, so what we're looking at here is you have brown eyes and we have blue eyes. Now, brown eyes are dominant to blue eyes. Dark eyes are dominant to light eyes in the human population. Okay, so keep that in mind. Brown eyes, when we look at brown, you can have big B, or you could have big B, little b, homozygous, heterozygous. But blue-eyed individuals are always recessive to little b's. So when we look at this problem, you got a brown-eyed man. So his phenotype, brown. He married a brown-eyed man whose father was brown-eyed. So grandpa up here was brown, and whose mother was blue-eyed. So the grandmother on this side was blue-eyed. The man married a blue-eyed woman. Blue-eyed woman whose father and mother were both brown-eyed. So both grandparents on this side have brown eyes. They have a blue-eyed daughter. She married a brown-eyed man. His father was brown-eyed. His mother was blue-eyed. They have a blue-eyed son. So what I want you to be able to do is go back into this family gene pool, and I'm going to use blue just so it stands out more. determine the genotypes. So you need to be able to set up a family tree, indicate phenotypes. So these right here are phenotypes. I can see, oh, I'm sorry, this is supposed to be brown, not brow. Brown. These are your phenotypes. This is what I can see. This over here, this is all of your genotypes, genotypic information, genetics. Okay? So, easiest way to start. Anybody who is blue-eyed, little b's. That's all that they can have. Little b's. Alright? Set that up, fill them in. They're guaranteed. Now, the brown-eyed folks, we know they have at least one big B. That is absolutely guaranteed. So you can put a big B in here for each of the brown-eyed individuals. But we want to figure out the second allele. What is the second piece of DNA from the brown-eyed folks, or that the brown-eyed folks will contain? And the way you do this is by looking at their kids, or possibly looking at their parents. So the woman over here with blue eyes, if she has blue eyes and both her parents are brown, she had to inherit one of these little b's from this dad and one of these from the mom. Let me extend that up. So even though both of those parents are brown-eyed, we can pretty confidently say they're carriers for that little b allele. Now, you cannot have a blue-eyed child from those two unless they carry it. Keep that in mind. Half of your DNA comes from each parent. They may not express the same physical trait as you, but if you inherited it, it came from mom and dad. Go to this side of the family. Brown-eyed man. His mom is blue and his dad is brown. So if this man's brown-eyed, we know he inherited one of his mother's little b's. So we can assume, or we could pretty confidently say, even though he's brown-eyed, he's a carrier because he got that from his mom. He got his big B from his dad. So his father passed the big B to the son, and the mom passed the little b. He becomes, again, a carrier, but he expresses the dominant variation of brown eyes. Now, double check, look down at the grandson. In order to have this grandson with blue eyes, one of those big or little b's came from mom, the other little b had to come from dad. So it's possible, even if you didn't know grandmother, hypothetical, you don't have her information available, you could figure out this man's information based upon looking at his son. If that is his child, he had to pass a child one of those little b's. You will never get both of your letters from one parent. So don't say, oh, grandson, the son here, he got his blue eyes from his mother. No, he got half from his mother. The other half came from his father. So we have one person in the family tree left to figure out. And that would be the grandfather on the left side of the tree, or the dad's side of the tree. So this is where we hit this uncertainty. We don't know. You do not know if grandfather is homozygous or heterozygous. We just can't determine that based upon the genetics we have at hand. So leave a question mark. Or you could say it could be this one or this one. We're not sure. The way we could possibly figure it out is if we had another generation up here to work with, or if we had other children from this couple to possibly work with. So hypothetical, if there was another child here from those two, then we could possibly figure it out. But don't panic and don't worry if you get stuck and you're like, I just can't figure it out because there's not enough information there. That does happen. All right, so genetics. Family tree, make sure you can set one up. Monohybrid crosses, one trait, two variations.